Hello, everyone. Welcome back to day two of Women Breaking the Mold Networking Forum for 2020. Now, every year at this forum, one of the most popular topics is about mentors, about how to find one, about how to be one yourself, how to be a good mentor, what to look for when you're looking for a mentor. So this year, we've put together a panel discussion featuring teams of mentors and mentees so that we can look at the issue from multiple angles. So from NTech, we have Linda Campbell, Christina Corona, and Tammy Straw. And then from Kerbel Plastics, we have Jenny Kuchowski and Pete Delgado. Now, we'll have each of the panelists briefly introduce themselves here, and we're going to start off with Linda from NTech.
Great. Well, hi. Thank you, Rhoda. I appreciate that introduction. My name is Linda Campbell, and I am the Vice President in charge of sales at NTech. NTech is a US-based company, US-based international company. We're headquartered in the beautiful Great Northwest in the state of Oregon, and that's where my office is in Oregon. We have three primary divisions at NTech and three manufacturing locations. We have manufacturing here in Oregon, also Newcastle upon Tyne, England, and Bogor, Indonesia. So the division I work for, we design and build twin screw co-rotating extruders. Along with that, we also design and build material handling equipment that supports the twin screw extruders, as well as wear parts. And we do all of our manufacturing here of those products in the US. So I started with NTech almost 33 years ago, and we had approximately 20 employees at that time. And today we have approximately 850 employees worldwide. So I've seen a lot of change through my years. I started off as the receptionist at NTech and pretty much have held every position within the company, with the exception of an engineer and a CNC machinist. But I joke with my colleagues that I have a few years left before I retire, so you never know. You might see me in engineering and out running a machine, I hope. But I'm very grateful to be here today. This is an important topic to me personally, and I know to my colleagues. And one of those colleagues I'd like to introduce to you is Christina Corona, and I'm just going to pass it right off to her. Hi, Christina.
Hi, Linda. Thank you. So my name is Christina Corona. I'm an installation manager here at NTech. I manage turnkey installations and oversee contractors on site throughout the build. I started my career as a single mom of 3 children. I graduated as a bridge technician, and in 2009, our company had a mass layoff. So later on, I made my way here to NTech. And I started out as a temp, filling in for a gal who was going out on maternity leave. I fell in love with the company and the people who work here and ended up becoming a full employee as a project coordinator, which gave me the foundation in project management and quoting. In that role, I learned a great deal about scopes and equipment and how to make a project successful. Through that, I gained a desire for a more technical role, and a year ago I was promoted to an installation manager. And I just got home from on-site where we're starting an $8 million line that's on track and on budget, and I'm honored to be part of the Women Breaking the Mold team. And I would like to introduce Tammy Straw, who is my colleague and one of my mentors.
Thank you, Christina. My name is Tammy Straw, and I am the Marketing and Business Development Manager here at NTech. I was hired in 1999 as an administrative assistant when another woman went on maternity leave, and that was fine with me. I was just looking for a 4-year job while my husband was in school in the area. One of my first projects was to plan the logistics for NPE 2000. And that was right up my alley. I like to organize and plan, and trade shows are wonderful. It's right in line with my marketing background and my degree. So I continued growing into the sales area and also as a marketing assistant. And then over time, I became sort of the second person planning the NPEs through 2015. And in 2016, our director of sales retired, and I was promoted to marketing manager along with the business development manager. And in 2018, I planned, trained, and executed our first NPE on my own, which was very exciting. It was a great show. So my 4-year gig has turned into a successful career at NTech, and in August I celebrated 21 years here. I would now like to turn it over to Ginny.
Thanks, Tammy. Hello, everyone. I'm Ginny Kachowski. I began my career at Kerbal Plastics in 2007 after graduating with a liberal arts degree from St. Vincent College, small, tiny college in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Kerbal Plastics, for those of you that do not know, is one of the nation's top 5 performance suppliers with more than 500 employees and 20 locations across the United States and growing. Kerbal provides plastic sheet, rod, and tube, as well as fabricated parts, films, tapes, adhesives, to customers in many market segments. I started my career in inside sales at our Pittsburgh branch location, but realized soon after that my passion is actually in training and development. And in 2009, I had an opportunity to transition from sales into our company's really first ever full-time training position. And at that time, the position focused primarily on training SAP, which was our new ERP system. In 2012, I completed my master's degree in organizational leadership through Geneva College and was also promoted that year into a training manager position where I took on greater responsibility with our programs and the strategic direction of training. Since then, I've held multiple positions within training and development. I currently serve as Associate Director of Training and Development. I also serve as chair of the IAPD Women in Plastics Committee. So when I was approached about this opportunity to put a spotlight on the importance of mentoring and sponsoring women, I certainly did not want to pass it up and asked my colleague, Peter Delgado, to participate with me. And so I now have the pleasure of introducing everyone to Peter.
Hello, everyone. My name is Peter Delgado, and I'm with Kerbal Plastics. I've been with Kerbal for 33 years. I guess Linda started at NTech probably around the same time, so long road with a great company. I started with Kerbal right out of college in inside sales and worked through many different roles, moved around with Kerbal to different cities, have worn many different hats. My current title is Senior Director of Sales and Customer Service, but underneath that, I am involved with sales, customer service, training, also information technologies, and also work among all the other departments as far as operations, purchasing, marketing, finance. So I get to see all parts of the company. I guess my role is kind of a strategic leader and a change agent within the company. And it's been really exciting. I've been able to mentor and sponsor a number of different people within Kerbal over the years, and have the privilege of working with really sharp people like Ginny. And when I was asked to do this, I said, "You sure you want me here?" So, but I think getting the view, a different view of mentoring and sponsoring women in the plastics industry is great. And I'm really excited to be here. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Rhoda.
All right. Well, thanks. Now that we've all met each other and you've met us, I'm gonna circle back around to the crew at NTech, since we've got a few of them. And as we mentioned, Linda, you started in this career. Probably there weren't a lot of other women out there that you were seeing, especially if you beyond, say, a reception office or something like that. So what was it like for you coming into the industry and not seeing as many women there, and how did that affect your career?
Wow, Rhoda, that is a great question. You're absolutely right. In the 80s and 90s, manufacturing, and even more so in plastics, there were very, very few females. Especially even just in working in clerical jobs, but even none to be found, at least I found at the time, in either a technical leadership or executive role that I could kind of connect with or or talk to or meet with. And for myself, I always had just something inside of me that wanted to stay in manufacturing. I knew that. I was really falling in love with the plastics industry. Not sure why at that time, but I knew I wanted to stay in plastics. And I knew I wanted to be an executive or a leader in a company. I had a desire to grow. And so as I started to say to myself as a 22, 3, 4, 5-year-old female, I'm going to have to learn how to navigate this world of, at that time, it was really predominantly male industry, very wonderful males that I really enjoyed meeting and have become lifelong friends with, amazing people, but predominantly male industry. So I just started to learn to navigate my way through the growth. And at that time, and why I'm here today, is I was very much craving some sort of guidance and leadership as being a female, and especially a young female at that time, trying to make her way in the industry. And let me tell you, I made a lot of very, very crucial mistakes in my career in the industry, and some I'm not proud of, and some I believe, had I had a mentor, I could have avoided. And but they were my lessons, they're my history, and that's why I'm here today, is to try to do anything I can to help other females grow in our beautiful plastics industry. I love it. So that answers your question.
So then how did that how do you think that impacted how then you reached out to some of your coworkers as they were coming on board at NTech, like Christina and Tammy? I mean, how did that then affect your approach to them, and how did you try to take on the mentor position?
Yeah, I think, it's a great question. And I know for sure, because I can remember those days like they were yesterday, even though obviously they weren't. But it was painful for me, making some mistakes and getting knocked down a few times and trying to figure out how to get back up and move forward. And I knew without a doubt that I was going to make it to a leadership role. I knew that. And I knew when I got there that I would be somebody that had the spirit of mentorship, the spirit of seeing the praises of other women and their accomplishments, and asking that question, well, why not her? And, it was always him for, like, Christina's position, let's say. She oversees a big construction crew out in a job site. She's got the hard hat on and the vest, and certainly 20 years ago, we wouldn't have considered her for that. So I believe that that experience gave me a drive, not just to drive to promote women, but people, but just don't leave the women out, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well then, and for Tammy and Christina, how was it for you coming into the company and seeing Linda already in a leadership position coming up in there? I mean, did that help you to feel comfortable moving into the company?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Tammy was also Christina's mentor in addition to being Linda's mentee? You're sort of in the middle. You were in the middle there, Tammy?
Yes. So when I came to NTech, I had office experience and lots of detail and task-oriented things, but mostly I had been working independently. And over the years, I was taking on more responsibility in addition to the marketing, but also for our parts sales. And as time passed, I sort of became the subject matter expert on our wear parts, and people from within our department and outside of our department were asking for my opinions and help on various things. So the thing that I would like to say is that you don't need to be a manager of people in order to be seen as a leader or a mentor. So basically, if you just want to be as helpful as you can to other people, and the position I've sort of taken is to emulate, well, what would Linda do in this situation? Because she is the best mentor that is around.
That's become a saying here. What would Linda do?
No.
That's great. I mean, and I would imagine, Christina, for you, that when you know you've got people who have your back at the home office, when you're out on a job site, that's probably got to take sort of a level of stress away from you.
Oh, it's extremely helpful. We have a great team here. And I mean, even just this last week, Linda gave me a call and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about you," and stuff. So it was really, really good to have that conversation. And I can tell her, anything that I'm struggling with. And, we just being really open with each other. And it's okay to feel like you're failing. If you share your fears with your mentor, the chances are they felt that way, the same way as you do. And sharing this can not only help you grow, but it can help them grow as well.
Okay. And then, as one of the reasons that we enjoy having Pete on the discussion here is that there is no reason that your mentor has to be a woman. It's nice to have other women out there, but I think all of us in the business have had both male and female mentors and mentees. So, Pete, you were sort of in the same situation as Linda. When you were coming up, there weren't as many women out there. But obviously, you've mentored a lot of women. I mean, is there anything that you look at when you're deciding, oh, this is a good person that I want to support? I mean, obviously, if you're looking at a variety of people, is there anything that sort of stands out that helps you say, this is the type of person I want, not just this is the man or this is the woman?
Yeah, absolutely. And it really, it's the people who show initiative and have potential. You have those kind of like they're performing well and they have a lot of potential, and they may not come to you. It's hard for people to come to you and say that they want to be mentored or sponsored. And Ginny and I we're both involved in IAPD and Women in Plastics, and recently had a great speaker named Branya Anderson who talked about sponsorship versus mentorship. And I believe I've probably been more of a sponsor often than a mentor, whereas a mentor is more private and advice, and a sponsor someone who champions and challenges and gives opportunity. And so, they kind of go hand in hand. But I look for people who show that initiative, but conversely can also help me and the company accomplish our goals. So it's kind of it's a joint relationship. It's not just I'm going to help you. We're helping each other. We're learning from each other. And so, and I haven't really looked for, I need to sponsor a male or a female. I have to say, I do really enjoy working with like sponsoring and mentoring women, because they seem to really respond well and seem to really take the coaching. And I really like to see, we've been able to promote more women to our leadership team at Kerbal, whether it's management positions or even our senior management team, like Ginny. And the diversity on the leadership team is so helpful. And I think women bring a level of empathy to it that is just so critical for decision making and to round out the thoughts on the team. So again, finding really good people to sponsor or mentor, no matter if they're men or women, I think is those things there. But I really have a number of women that report directly to me that I kind of sponsored to those roles, and it's worked out really well. And they challenge me a lot.
So Jenny, can you give us an example of the kind of things that Pete's been able to do to help you move forward in your career?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think to Linda's example, where you've had all that experience, prior to me joining the organization, Peter was already here for quite some time. So he knew the ins and outs of Kerbal and how things work. And I think, to take that a step further, at least initially, he was an ear. He always listened to my ideas. He carved out time to have discussions with me about things or to make sense of things for me. So I think early on, that was probably the main thing. And then as we got to know each other more in our, relationship, he's my manager, but in terms of it being a sponsorship thing, he started to see, well, what am I best suited for? What are my strengths? What do I bring to the table in terms of projects? And he had that information. He was on the senior management team. He knew what was going on in the company. So he kept me informed. And then also when projects came up where he thought I was a fit, and as he mentioned, could do a service to the company and benefit the company in a project, he would, raise his hand. I think Jenny would be great for that project. And that then increases your exposure and your opportunities to make a name for yourself. I think women in plastics specifically, which I know he mentioned from IAPD several years ago when Peter and I were, I was reporting to him for a few years at that point. They were looking to get this Women in Plastics group off the ground. And again, it was his knowledge, his connections that led them to talk to him about the desire to create something. And then he connected me to the women who were trying to get it off the ground. And had he not been that sponsor for me, I would have never, tackled that. So I think it's the opportunity piece that I would say is most key to, what it's done for my career and how he's helped me over the years.
Yeah. And I would imagine to a certain extent, I mean, like Ginny, I think you said you went to liberal arts school. So probably you weren't thinking plastics. I think a lot of people who end up in the plastics industry don't think that they're going to be doing that. So it's not like you studied that in school. So how much of having a good mentor is just getting that sense of confidence from them, that belief in yourself because they think you can do it? I mean, how much of that has to play in there in terms of making that connection with a mentor?
Yeah, I mean,
I'll let Ginny go back into that just real quick.
Sure. I mean, I think for me personally, I was coming right out of college when I started at Kerbal. So I was, Linda mentioned being young and not having access to someone at that time when you are young and you maybe are prone to make a lot of mistakes. And I won't say I didn't make them, because believe me, there are plenty that I could probably recall. But fortunately for me, I did come into plastics. I think the only thing that really helped me a whole lot, I mean, liberal arts is such a well-rounded degree program. I highly recommend it as an undergrad, because you do get a taste of a lot of different things. And I just think it teaches you how to think differently, how to look big picture, because it's all these different pieces that kind of fit to make a whole. And that's what I loved about plastics. It's all gray area. There's so much to learn. It's almost overwhelming when you first come in. So without having that person that can make sense of it for you early on, you do tend to not only make mistakes, but you can learn from them and their mistakes that they probably made, and just kind of set yourself up for success. So I would say, that was my experience anyway.
Okay. And if anybody else wants to jump into that, just, the idea that I think a lot of people end up being mentors without knowing they're being mentors at first, just because they're saying, oh yeah, you can do it. Don't worry about it. You're fine. I mean, it's just sort of that belief in somebody else without necessarily putting the name tag on there of mentor.
Yeah, there was definitely an experience that happened with Linda. It was early on when I started here at Intech, and I was having a rough day, and Linda took me aside and she just looked me in the eye and she's like, "You've got this. It's fine. You've got this." And so I think just that was kind of the moment where she became my mentor, and I felt that connection with her where I could go and I could ask her questions, and she would make herself available to me. Even when she was traveling on the road, I could shoot her a text and she would take the time to respond.
Yeah, and just to follow up with what Christina said to that, Christina is a great example of a mentee. She's, and Tammy I know would agree, she's incredibly open and is like a sponge with information. And I agree, I believe it was Rhoda or Jenny, it wasn't, that said, it's not necessarily a formal mentor-mentee relationship, but it was certainly something that formed because Christina was very clear in what she wanted to do within our company, and her growth vision, I guess, was similar to mine at the time when I was younger than her, but starting out. So it made a good fit. It wasn't a formal relationship, but it turned out to be.
Yeah. So let me switch gears here. And so what's some of the best advice that you've received from a mentor? And then also to flip it around, what's the best thing that you've learned from a mentee? So I'm going to start with Peter this time. I mean, because I'm sure you had mentors coming up as well. You weren't always the old man of the industry giving expert advice, right? At some point you had to learn.
Rhoda,
Wow.
Hey, I count myself in. You see the color hair here?
we're the same
I
age.
have found,
Peter
I
and I,
have
so
found
careful.
myself in that situation. I suddenly find myself as a mentor, and I did not think of myself as one. But I remember my mentors. So yeah, like I said, we'll start with Pete. I mean, what sort of things have you learned from your mentors, and what have you learned from your mentees?
I agree. When I started before electricity, there was no mentors then. No, and I think it was even less, like you said, it's not always a formal thing. And I think it develops not as a formal, it's not like most of the time, I'm going to be your mentor. You're going to be my mentee. It really becomes that working relationship, and it just blossoms to sponsor or mentor someone. In the past, it was, I think, business was different, and it was just more of kind of a go and like show that you could do things. So I was goal oriented, and I'll say I don't want to use the word aggressive, but I was again goal oriented, and I wanted to do well. So and a couple people that were higher up in the company, including the person who was running Kerbal Plastics at the time, kind of took me under their wing and was really championed me for a lot of things. So I just learned that really it's as advice for people looking for someone is that same thing of show what you can do and show how you can help the people in charge, or pick out a couple people that you would like to spend time with you and show them how you can help, and they will. Conversely, learning from your mentees, boy, I've mentored, or again, sponsored or had these relationships with a number of different people. And if you work together, and it's not, I'm only giving you advice, but we're learning from each other and kind of rowing towards a common goal or vision, you learn so much. And again, Ginny's a great example. Like, she pushes me to be better. So I learn from that all the time. I have a few people on my team that I have to stay on my toes. And I would advise everyone, if you're in your career, if you're later on in your career, sometimes you feel like you can put it in a little lower gear. Find a few people that'll push you, and boy, it makes getting up every day a lot more energizing and a lot more challenging. So that's what's really been a benefit for me from working, mentoring, sponsoring some really good people.
Yes.
Anyone else?
I second what Peter says. I think that was well said as far as your past mentees just challenging you and keeping you on your toes. I know Christina and Tammy, they can run circles around me for sure.
Well, I think there's one thing that I learned from a mentor early on, and I know this comes up a lot when I speak with, women now that are looking to maybe grow in their career, and that is, in terms of advice that I received from a mentor, it would be to know your strengths, know what you bring to the table, and be able to articulate that when you are, part of a project, and maybe you played a specific role in that project. The team accomplishes the goal, but what did you specifically do, and really being able to articulate that to position yourself for what you're looking for. And then in terms of learning from mentees, I think the team that I work with, there's people on my team that do things I don't do or have never done before. So it's an opportunity for me to learn from them as much as they can learn from me. And I think I talk about that all the time. Like, don't be so busy, especially in training and development, don't be so busy teaching that you forget to learn. So I try to learn all the time.
That's terrific, Jenny. That's great advice. I think the best advice that's ever been given to me was from Linda. And I remember one time she told me, she said, listen to understand, not to respond. And so I've taken that, and I've worked really hard, doing that. I have ADD, so I have a million things going on in my mind at once. And so, it's it can be a struggle, but yes, listen to understand. That's really important. And in regards to mentors, I've been so lucky to have Linda and Tammy as mentors. And then moving into this new position, living out on the road and working in a construction site, there have been so many men who have taken me under their wing and have given me an opportunity to learn from them. So I'm learning things like installing compressed air lines. That's my new favorite thing. But it's just have as many mentors as possible, male or female, and just really be open. To touch on what Linda said before, one of the things that's helped me to be successful is being open to feedback, even when it's not something that I want to hear. You don't always have to agree with something. It's okay to challenge it. But opening that dialogue can give you and your mentor a chance to communicate and both grow from it.
Yeah, and I do think, as Christina, as you mentioned there, that there are so many people that you can learn from. I mean, just to be open to learning from anybody out there, because you could find somebody with a great attitude who's stocking shelves someplace, and it's just like, oh, that's the mentality that I need to get.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be a traditional arrangement.
Yeah. I'd like to share, Rhoda, the best advice that I'd received from a mentor, which is, I don't know if our friends from Cobell will know him, but a gentleman by the name of Andy Kovacs from Brabender Technology. They're a feeder company out of Canada. But Andy has always been a friend to NTech and a supplier. But I had mentioned that, when I was younger, I was trying to navigate my way and I made several mistakes. And looking back, I think Andy probably saw me making some of those mistakes as I was out in the field as a young salesperson. And we were at dinner one time, and I said, can you give me some feedback? Let's talk. And he said, the best advice I can give you, Linda, is always be yourself. Don't try to be somebody you're not. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks at that time. And I needed to hear that, because I really felt like I knew who I didn't want to be as my reputation in the industry. I didn't want to come off as like this strong woman that knew everything and was going to tell you exactly what you needed. So I made the mistake of kind of going the exact opposite and being overly nice and overly friendly and kind of hiding my knowledge. So I didn't come off as that type of person that I didn't want to be. So I ended up kind of changing my personality based on who I was interacting with. And it was a real struggle, and it was a real mistake had I had somebody give me the feedback earlier. But after Andy gave me that feedback, is just be yourself. I just took a deep breath. I reset and I said, you know what? It's okay to be friendly. It's okay to be nice. And at the same time, it's okay to really know what you're talking about and engage at a very high level with a man that might be 20 or 30 years older than you. And if you speak your truth and you are yourself, your honesty and your sincerity and your knowledge will come through. And so that was the best advice that I'd ever learned from a mentor. And then as far as a mentee, Tammy Straw, that's on this panel, I used to be I still am sometimes, but if a customer's down or there's a problem in the field, I get just panicked and nervous, and oh my gosh, I take it to my heart, and just kind of had this roller coaster of emotions. And Tammy told me one time, and continues to tell me when I need to hear it, is, Linda, it's not life or death. This is only manufacturing. And it sounds so simple, but it's so true. We strive always to be on time and have high quality equipment, but sometimes things happen, and that's manufacturing. It's not life or death. So I always remember that. That's my mantra when I get nervous or excited or I disappoint a customer in some way, which we try not to, but it happens. It's not life or death. It's only manufacturing. So be yourself. It's not life or death. It's only manufacturing. Those are my two.
I like that. Well, I'm going to pick on Tammy to start this next question here.
Okay.
And that because you're coming from marketing, sort of that background, and that's dealing with network and sort of selling yourself out there, networking, because nobody wants to be that annoying person who is just presenting cards to absolutely everyone. But you need to also get your name out there. So do you have any advice on how you make connections without necessarily being that annoying person?
I would say that in general, probably most people would want to be helpful to other people. And if you're looking for a mentor, I would suggest that you find somebody who you admire. Maybe it's the way that they lead their team, or maybe it's something particular presentation style that they use, or whatever it is, and communicate that you're looking for a mentor and for your professional self. And I think probably that anybody would be flattered to be asked in that situation to help mentor you professionally. I definitely wouldn't go around passing out business cards. That's not that's not a good idea.
I think we all have desks full of business cards that we can't even remember the person who gave it to us.
Yes.
I have a card from somebody. I don't remember them because there were 18 different people.
My LinkedIn is so great now.
Although I am probably one of the worst people at LinkedIn. I get so busy I don't have time to check in there, and then suddenly I'll discover I have 18 messages waiting for me. So it's very difficult. Well, I want to ask how, because it's dealing with mentoring and making connections and everything. But now I know that the folks from NTech have been able to be in the office, but then Christina was off-site for a long time. And, Pete and Ginny, you're outside office, a general office setting. So how do you communicate when you're not seeing each other in the office every day? I mean, how do you begin to do that? What's the secret to communicating when, we've all had enough Zoom in our life, like today?
Yes.
I would say for me, just sending texts or phone calls. Like I mentioned, Linda gave me a call last week, and just that reaching out kind of reset me mentally. We're working on a startup and we kind of hit a wall. And so, just receiving that phone call, and it wasn't an in-person visit. It was just hearing her voice, and it kind of re-anchored me, and, I reset the day, and we were successful in the end. So text and anything you can do to reach out, no matter what media it is.
During the beginning of the pandemic, we actually had our entire sales team working remotely. And I'm sure you all know, being in sales, you need to be around people and have a certain amount of interaction. So we had a lot of conference calls and Zoom calls and things between March and July when we came back in the office, and just to really help us feel connected to each other and to what was going on.
Yeah, same way here in sales, and I'm sure Peter could relate to this, but you travel all the time to go see your customers and that building that personal relationship face to face, and all of a sudden it ends. It's like, oh my goodness, what do we do? So we scrambled here at NTech, and I'll have to tell you, we did a really good job. We our pilot plant, or our lab facility where people come in and test the equipment before buying, people weren't flying. So we went to virtual lab trials, and we were sure clumsy at the beginning, but man, we've got it down now. We do virtual tours of NTech now, where we're actually interacting with our customers. And then we're also doing virtual training. So where we would have been on site to do operator training or process training, we're doing that virtually. It's working, and I'm a positive person, so I'm saying, it's filling the bill, but it's a challenge, and there's nothing like just this experience. There's nothing like being in front of a person, talking to them and connecting with them. And I can't wait till it gets back to normal, personally. This conference is a great time, I don't know, to be there live, and this is going to be fantastic, but I'll look forward to next year when we can all be together.
Yes.
Yeah, Linda, your story on doing the virtual tour and stuff. We're doing customer interviews right now because for us, like our inside salespeople, they went home. A lot of them went home, and then a lot of them came back, but their job didn't change too much. But our outside salespeople, their world was turned on their head because they went from seeing customers to we're still not seeing customers unless a customer absolutely needs to see us. So they're not out like on the road all the time, and we have outside salespeople all over the country. So, but we're doing customer interviews right now to talk to them about what do you see for sales? What do you see for the future of outside sales and in general? And we just talked to one customer the other day, and they said that they did the same thing. They manufacture packaging machinery, but at first they were like, "What are we going to do when we can't have people here to see the demos?" But they're doing these virtual demos, and they said we were able to have people from that company from all over the world in on this virtual demo without having to book all the travel and everything. So that was like just a small success story. But on the communication piece, when we all scattered, one of the things that we did was we said, okay, we have to really work with the outside salespeople to keep them proactive and everything. So we did have a lot of meetings. But what we found was, being intentional in communication. Don't schedule a Zoom meeting just to schedule it, but have a really good purpose and keeping everybody together and focused on the same stuff. And that really helped. I had people reaching out, and I was kind of quarterbacking that with a few other people, but people we would have those meetings, and then they would reach out, and it was, I had discussions with people that I typically wouldn't have discussions with because we were all there. They knew they could reach me. So, we found a great benefit in that, and that was really helpful. So that was that kind of like I was able to, I actually probably picked up a couple of people that I'm sponsoring, mentoring now through that whole process. And then I'd like you mentioned the virtual training, and we were successful because Ginny and her foresight had us all on Zoom and doing a lot of stuff last year. So we were able to transition over to that stuff pretty quickly. And I'd like Ginny to just mention the virtual training and what we're doing with that.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So from I thought about this question from a number of different angles. I think on the training and development specifically, a lot of our programs over the years, because we have so many locations and we keep growing, we've really taken a more blended approach. So there's a lot of things that are now self-paced that are delivered through, say, for example, our learning management system, or their manager facilitates a piece with them. So the curriculums have really been built out in that way, where now there's only a piece that's typically instructor-led. So everything kind of builds up to that instructor-led piece. And so this year, with the change, we decided, okay, how do we take that instructor-led piece and deliver that remotely? And so we were able to take pretty much the same agenda, but then make some tweaks in terms of how much content we were doing in a particular time and kind of splitting some of those things up. And it was really interesting on the training and development front, some of the feedback we got from attendees. We all, as Linda mentioned, we're used to traveling for training, traveling for visits. Some of the folks that we bring up to training are not used to traveling all the time. And so there's things that I never thought of before, like, wow, I really like that online training because I didn't have to fly in an airplane and meet up with people that, at the airport that I've never met before. That gives me a little bit of anxiety. And then sleep in a hotel where I'm not really comfortable. So I'm not getting a good night's sleep and I feel tired the next day for training, and how doing it remotely really let them focus on the training itself. And I thought that was a really interesting piece of feedback. So like Linda, I think we're optimists. So we tend to find the positive in whatever situation we're given, and we just adapt and overcome type of mentality. So I think that's what we've taken in training and development. But I think on the other side, I've been remote even prior to COVID, and I've had employees working remotely for several years. And I think on the manager front, it's like Peter said, being intentional about that, reaching out on a regular basis, whether it's through Zoom, through, we have Cisco Jabber, so you can send a chat message just to check in. And you can do things like that, just like you said, to make sure that I think Christina said, to just be available and let them know you're available, and then try to do some fun things with them where you get to know them on a personal level. So we've done happy hour, we've done Zoom lunch or Zoom coffee chat. And so you have to make sure you don't over Zoom, because that's a real thing now. There's like this whole thing around Zoom exhaustion. Believe me, I understand, but I think it's that balance. Mm-hmm. I don't want to get too long-winded, but I did want to mention, because I think it's worth noting on the networking side of things, I think this has presented really another unique opportunity. I know Peter and I were just talking about this the other day with some events just like this one, where, you know, historically you go and someone mentioned like handing out and spamming people with business cards, and it sometimes feels that way. But with certain events, you can, you know, get together after an online thing, and you can still go and chat with those people or seek them out. Maybe they impressed you by something they said, or in the chat, you're watching the chat and you see someone make a comment and you think to yourself, wow, I'd really like to connect with that person and find out more. So I think there's still the ability to do more intentional networking. You just have to kind of look at it that way. And so I think that's been something, and, you know, I'm not a commuter, but I try to do a little bit of that networking piece each day on LinkedIn, and reach out to some of my contacts, send them a message, let them know I'm thinking of them, or like or comment on something that they're sharing. So
yeah, I think that sort of makes sense. Just looking at the folks who are tuned in to Women Breaking the Mold, this virtual edition, because our numbers are far higher than people who could actually have flown into Denver and gone to the meeting there. Mm-hmm. So it really gives more people a variety, a chance to communicate. And I think also it sort of falls into the area of taking advantage of what mentees can teach us, because I know that our younger employees at Plastics News, who are much more part of the digital generation, are much more comfortable with that, with using Slack, with using Zoom, with using all of these different ways to communicate. And that's forced me to sort of break out of my bubble that I was accustomed to using. So it's, you know, that's that opportunity where you can learn from a mentee. I want to move into another area.
Hey, Rhoda.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to demonstrate a mentor-mentee live. And Jenny, I'd like to ask you, would you be my mentor on remote worker connections?
Absolutely.
Because you've got it going on. I failed miserably.
Send me a connection. I'd love to chat. I'm sure I can learn a lot from you as well, Linda.
Okay, it's a date.
And on that note, when we're finishing up today, if you want to be ready to take a screenshot or something, and we'll have this available, we're going to have everybody's email information that's going to be on the screen here as we're wrapping things up. So if folks want to get in touch email-wise, they can be prepared to write those down. But as I was mentioning, we did bring this up a couple of times. People mentioned that you don't have to be in a supervisor position to be a mentor, and looking at the peer-to-peer mentor relationship. I know that one of the best pieces of advice I got was from a fellow reporter, not at Plastics News, because Plastics News is wonderful, but at a job I had for many years. And you know, I find myself getting frustrated and just sort of getting into this cycle of frustration where, you know, every little thing seemed to tick you off. So he and I made a pact that we were only allowed one bitch per day. So one bitch per day. So then every day you would say, now do I want this to be my bitch a day? It's like, no, it's not big enough. I'll just let that slide. I won't get stressed out about that thing. So it sort of really helped my mental game. And this was something that he and I did for each other. It's just sort of that peer-to-peer relationship that you can get. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, this peer-to-peer thing. I mean, how you can develop this relationship with people that you're seeing every day who are your coworkers. What sort of a relationship do you guys have that you find you develop a lot from? I'll wait for a volunteer.
Peer to peer. So thinking about that, I've had, you know, when I first started here, Linda and Tammy were both my peers. and then they've moved up. But peer-to-peer, boy, a lot of people out on the production floor, assembly and the machine shop, just trying to learn and understand the different products that we sell and the industry. They became mentors, and they were teaching me things out there regarding production, and then also I was teaching them from a sales perspective. And so when I think of peer-to-peer, that's a huge one, just taking a moment and going out and talking with your manufacturing team. You get kind of caught up in the office, and you're in your own little zone. Sometimes it's worth just getting up and walking out and taking a look at what other people do. And, before you know it, you have this incredible group of people who are teaching you things that you thought you knew, but you really didn't.
Yeah, I think something that you said struck me, because I think it goes back to that intentionality piece. Like you talked about, like I intentionally went out on the production floor and I had these conversations. So I think it, from peer to peer, it's, I think it's intentionality. It's also accessibility, making yourself accessible. So peer to peer, I think that's what I try to do. Whether I'm going and learning from someone, I tend to go to the people who make themselves available to me to learn from them. If there's something that I'm dealing with and I think they could possibly help me, I'm going to go there. If same thing, that they know that I'm always accessible and the door is always open, and we're not in a manager relationship. Really, there's, other than just having someone that you can bounce an idea off that's kind of thinks differently than you, I think that's what you want to try to do is, and then it's reciprocal. I'm being intentional about reaching out and seeing how you're doing, or if there's anything I can do for you. And then that then leads others to come to you as well. And it doesn't have to be that management relationship at all.
Absolutely. Yeah. I use peer-to-peer almost daily here at NTech. I use Tammy here on the panel a little too much, I think, and I probably drive her crazy, but when I have to have a difficult conversation with somebody, whether it be an employee or a customer, my go-to is to role play it live with somebody. And so I'll pick, often it's Tammy, sometimes it's a fellow manager or even a president here at NTech, and I'll just pull them into a room and have them role play live with me, and then give me feedback on my approach and make sure that my words are landing, because I have a tendency not to be clear and concise in my communication. I'm working on it. And so role playing helps me. So I reach out every day almost. I would say every day I do. Practice something.
It's also good if you can find somebody to do that with that has an opposite personality style to you. So for example, Linda is very nice and I'm more factual, and so we together make a really good, well-rounded presentation or whatever it is that we're working on. So it makes a good team.
And occasionally they would gang up on me.
Yes. Well, it was easy to gang up on Christina because she was so open and so much beautiful natural talent and intelligence and drive that, gosh, you just wanted to be around her and help her to be successful.
Thank you.
Yeah, when I looked at this question, Rhoda, and I'll bring Ginny into this, and actually, who I report to the president of the company, and so, but it's not only, it's like that peer-to-peer, and Linda mentioned like, bringing a president into it, and by the way, Linda, kudos on going in and role-playing stuff that you're don't feel you're good at or know you need to improve with, because we like preach that, like if you need help with that, like role play it, grab somebody else, do that. But I go to Ginny, so we have this kind of mentor-mentee relationship, but sometimes we flip it around because she's got such great skill sets that are better than mine in certain things, and I'll go to her for advice. And often, our president will talk to me because he, same kind of thing. So don't always think that it needs to be, even peer to peer, but don't be afraid that if it's a supervisor or somebody higher up that you can't help them. So that was a great example.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it sounds like a lot of advice that everybody has for a lot of these relationships, whether it's finding a mentor, mentee. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask questions and, make connections, because sometimes it's going to be a great relationship. Sometimes it may be something where you may work together on one thing and then you move on.
Right.
No, nobody says that you're tied at the hip as soon as you make that connection.
Yep.
I think company culture has a big part of it. We're blessed with an awesome company culture at Kerbal, where it's not a hierarchical culture, and everybody's kind of in it together. So that's really helpful. So being able to do that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I'm sure that to a certain extent, all of you have mentors who are not directly in your company as well.
Mhm.
It may be somebody that it could be even a parent, or it could be someone you went to school with that you really admire, and you're able to balance each other out and sort of get advice from another person who's maybe not in the same industry, maybe at a different company. Nobody says that it has to be strictly hierarchical within your corporation.
Yeah, I think and sometimes you can ask someone that you trust and know. Maybe that's not the person that should mentor you, but ask, do they know someone that might be interested in mentoring, or maybe there's something specific. So I think even just taking it there to say, here's what I'm looking to achieve, and is there someone that that could possibly do this for me? So that person might end up saying, well, I can, if you're interested, I'll be that person for you, or they can connect you with one of their connections. So earlier you talk about the power of a network. That's the power of a network. And I just learned yesterday the concept of weak tie. I'd never even heard of that before in networking, but it's that idea that you connect with people, as you said, Rhoda, sometimes just in a project, and maybe you don't work together all the time, but that person now becomes a bridge to somebody else that really could do or help you with what you're trying to accomplish. So I would say that would be another thing to really emphasize in this whole discussion.
Yeah. It could be somebody where you're just like, that person, you read an email from someone and say, boy, that's somebody who knows how to communicate. I wonder if they can teach me, how to do this better. Or, so many different areas. I mean, God forbid I ever have to do sales. That would not be my strong point. Or, welding. But then, when we get Linda out to the CNC machines, she's going to eventually go out and find somebody to do that.
Yes.
We'll
If
all
I can
find her
be a
somebody who
CNC
can teach her
machinist
that.
who can sail.
Okay, we're pretty much out of time, almost out of time now. Is there something any of you want to point out that we haven't touched on? Other than, obviously, as I said, we're going to be having email connections that are there. I think most of you are, yeah, there it is right now. So like I said, I appreciate you guys all being here, part of this, and it was great to have you here as teams. So again, I really appreciate it. But now, if you want to revisit this session, because who wouldn't want to hear me stumble all over words again? Now, this session and everything else from the conference is going to be available on the Plastics News website after this conference is completed. And coming up today, we have a 3:30 session from Doreen Becker of Ampeset on tips to navigate the workplace. And then tomorrow we have even more on tap for day 3. But for now, and for the group here from NTEC and from Kerbal, I'm Rhoda Meal from Plastics News. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.